Every video and episode of the It's Cavalier podcast is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos, podcasts, member shoutouts, and more. And as always, thank you for watching. Go Cavs. Every video and episode of the It's Cavalier podcast is made possible by my supporters over on Patreon. If you enjoy the show here today, consider signing up. You'll get early access, exclusive videos, podcasts, member shoutouts, and more. And as always, thank you for watching. Go Cavs. Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac, and tonight our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Detroit Pistons to close out this preseason slate. And before the game even started, the Cavs announced something maybe more important than anything that we had see out on that court tonight. Honestly, that statement is incorrect, but it is a very, very, very important announcement, and that's that Sam Merrill would be joining the starting lineup tonight. Do your boy a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to keep the NBA content coming, and hit that notification bell so you stay locked in all off season long. Listen, right off the bat, it was clear that the Cleveland Cavaliers wanted to operate as close to the regular season as possible. They said as much. Kenny Atkinson apparently mentioned that tonight's game would be a little bit of a dress rehearsal and that he wanted to simulate as much of a regular season game as possible. And ladies and gentlemen, the starting lineup was as follows: Donovan Mitchell, Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. That is very, very likely to be the starting lineup we see in game one to open the season against New York. I think a lot of people expected that, right? Especially with so much hype that's been thrown on Sam Merrill. We know that they're big time believers in the talent that he brings to the table. Good fit next to Donovan Mitchell out there at the point. We already know we wanted DeAndre Hunter to start at the 3, and obviously Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen were out there at the 4 and the 5 to round things out. And as much as I want to talk about everything that I witnessed tonight, as much as I want to go down the script of what I had written in terms of my observations, guys, I can't do that. Just something I'm called upon. I am called upon to discuss the one and the only Lonzo Ball. Now, you guys know how much I pined for that trade. You guys know how much I was out ahead of it and trying to basically lobby the Cavaliers to trade for Lonzo Ball. And when that trade went through, oh my God, you guys know I was elated. And then you don't get this offseason. We hear all these wonderful quotes about what Lonzo brings to the table, both on and off the court. We heard how big of an impact player he can be out there, how vocal he's been, how he sees the game, he sees the floor, what he can add, some of the conversations that he's had with the coaching staff. And then you watch the first couple of preseason games and you see little tidbits and pieces of what Lonzo has been able to do, or what he showed little flashes of what he's going to potentially bring to the table. And then you get to tonight against this Detroit Pistons team. And listen, I get it. That was not their their cast of players that they're going to be playing regularly, right? No Kay Cunningham, no Karis LeVert. We don't know what's going on with some of the other pieces over there, whether or not they're going to bring back Malik Beasley. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But clearly, this team had a game plan, and Lonzo was a big fucking part of that. Oh my God. Like I posted a ton of clips on social media, him making plays left and right, whether that was dimes to Larry Nance Jr., whether that was basically outlet passes to Jarrett Allen, or rerouting the basketball off of a drive, or making that extra pass out there off of a Donovan Mitchell feed, hitting the guy in the corners. He has done so much. And then obviously on the defensive end, right? 3 blocks. This is a man that I don't care what anybody says, as long as he stays healthy, he will get 6 Man of the Year consideration. Now, I know that the plan for him is to play less than 20 minutes per game. I know that the plan is to hold him out of back-to-backs or the latter half of them. But man, it's really tempting to give him as many minutes as he can handle, because his impact is just so goddamn felt on both ends of the floor. Excuse my language. Like, he's an impact player. And I have to imagine that this is the type of player that the Cavaliers envisioned when that trade went through, right? They were still very confident in the ability of Isaac Okoro to develop as a player in the future, but Lonzo clearly fits better in terms of what they actually want to do out there in moving the ball, getting that pace up, to making sure that guys are being placed in the right spots. And Lonzo showed you how good of a break starter he is. He showed you how well he sees the floor, whether that is operating the pick and roll, whether that's driving and kicking, whether that is hitting guys in the outlet passes. There is just so much that he adds to this Cavaliers second unit. And I do not know how you could watch that and not believe that this is the trade that could potentially end up pushing them past the second round, right? He just adds so much out there. And I get it. Like the offensive production that Ty Jerome brought to the table, that will be probably very, very difficult to fully replicate. But the good thing is that you don't need one specific player to replicate that. You're going to get a by committee approach. Lonzo is going to be able to give what he gives in terms of the off ball shooting. And speaking of that, what do we see from Lonzo tonight? One was a pull up triple in transition, pull up, mind you. Take note of what I just said. The pull-up triple, not necessarily something that Lonzo has been comfortable doing throughout the entirety of his career, especially last season with Chicago. Not only did you see that, but you saw the catch and shoot tray be something that he brought tonight too. As Lonzo would finish with 9 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists, almost had a double-double. 3 blocks, as I mentioned, and he was hella efficient in just about everything that he did out there, sans the charity stripe where he went just 1 of 4. That's an area, obviously, we're going to be keeping track of, but I'll overlook that in just in spite, just because of everything else that he brought to the table tonight. 20 minutes. Pulled him out right after that. That was the plan, right? And keep in mind, Ty Jerome didn't even average 20 minutes per game last season. So I think that's right about the perfect spot for him to be at in terms of minutes per game. So you manage him right. You get him out there. You let him be a connective piece, a connective tissue, just an overall connector out there, whatever word you want to use, and look out. Especially once Darius, Garland, and Max Strus come back. And I didn't want to make this whole thing about Lonzo, but damn it, I'm on my soapbox right now, and I'm just pounding the table. And I'm so damn happy about this trade. I cannot wait to see this team game 1 against the New York Knicks. I cannot fucking wait to see how much this team has improved. Some of the small little improvements that they have managed to work on. Evan Mobley comes to mind in particular. I know you guys have seen this all preseason. Evan Mobley with the mid-range shot. Listen, you since his rookie season, Evan Mobley has almost abandoned the mid-range shot. Not necessarily because he's uncomfortable doing so, in my opinion, but because that's just not what the offense called upon him to do. The Cavaliers coaching staff didn't call a lot of actions in place for him to do that. But what you have seen throughout the entirety of this preseason is Evan is routinely getting to that mid-range shot, whether that be a pull-up or he is literally working into it and getting into position and hitting turnaround fadeaways. He's done that at least 5 or 6 times this preseason already. And he's not even getting his full complement of minutes. So once he starts to get that, expect that to be the case. Expect that to be the norm more than a few times a game. And if he continues to develop that, especially once the playoffs begin, he's going to be unstoppable out there. The teams already have a tough time adjusting and stopping a big that moves the way that he does, who can handle, who can knock down that 3-point shot. He was improving his game in the post. But if he adds that midi, especially a pull-up midi to his game, holy hell, you have a problem on your hands. And that is a huge reason why people, NBA analysts, fans, GMs, right, his teammates believe that he can be an MVP caliber player this year. I certainly see it. Does that mean he's going to win the MVP? No, but it means that he has that potential out there. And even if he doesn't get into that top 5 territory this year, I believe that it's fully on the way. And I think he's shown you a lot this preseason already. It's not always pretty with the ball handling. Sometimes he'll bring the ball up the floor and it'll be a little bit clunky, but the more touches that he gets, the increased ability and utilization that they'll give him, it's only going to be beneficial once the playoffs begin, because the end result here is championship, man. So many of these small things, so many of these small improvements. Damn the wins, damn the losses in the preseason. Nobody gives a shit about that. It's all about the small developments, the internal growth, and connecting and developing that chemistry out there and getting some of these new lineups and seeing what they can add. And speaking of lineups, we got to see one of the most interesting lineups of preseason so far. I shit you not. We got to see Donovan Mitchell, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade, Larry Nash Jr., and Evan Mobley. That is a big ass lineup for one that gives you a nice mix of on ball creation, passing, size, and defense and rebounding. That is one hell of a lineup. Is that something I want to see constantly? No, I do not want to see DeAndre Hunter playing the two all that often. But being able to just throw that type of lineup out there, that's what preseason is for. That's what the early stages of the regular season will be for. And that to me is like the experimentation. And that is only going to be beneficial come the playoffs, just like a lot of these other things that I'm mentioning. But man, this was phenomenal. This was a phenomenal showing. And again, it was not the regular cast of players over on the Detroit sideline, JB Bickerstaff coach team that figures to be a top 6 team in the East again once more. But I'll tell you what, that was, I don't care who was out there, seeing what the Cavaliers were able to do, seeing how they were able to gel, seeing what Mobley and DeAndre Hunter, who we'll talk about in just a second, seeing how Lonzo and Sam, the energy that he brought to this team in his return tonight. All of these small things, this is what we have been clamoring for, right? Obviously, we're still down Darius Garland. Obviously, we're still without the likes of Max Strus, who we're probably not going to see until mid-December, maybe even January. But knowing that you have all of these pieces that will allow you to slow walk these guys back into their roles, that is big time. Not only do you have that, you have the depth to carry you to a lot of early season wins, and you're going to get the opportunity to develop some of this young talent on the fly. You're going to be able to be afforded CPJ minutes. You're going to be able to be afforded Tyrese Proctor minutes. You're going to be able to be afforded some minutes to a Thomas Bryant, a guy who even at 28, 29 years old, may not be fully done developing in his own right. There's just so many different opportunities out there, and they have to make decisions on Naquan Tomlin, the decisions on Luke Travers, who drilled a triple tonight. It was nice to see. So much. It's not the wins and the losses. I don't give a fuck about the record in the preseason. It's about the small development. It's about developing that chemistry. And anybody that knows anything about ball will tell you the same thing, right? And honestly, I gotta admit to you, after watching them sit the bulk of their starters in game 3 in that woeful showing against the Boston Celtics, I was unsure about what we would see tonight. I honestly, before the news about Kenny wanting to simulate an actual regular season game, a la a dress rehearsal, I was thinking that we're probably going to see some of the back end players just play the entirety of the game, and they were going to play it cautiously with their starters like they did for the game against Boston. But I'm kind of glad they didn't, because one, we got this awesome showcase from Lonzo, bringing everything that we knew that he was capable of bringing. But you got the return of Sam Merrill, who we needed to see what that was going to look like beside DeAndre Hunter and Donovan Mitchell and Evan and Jarrett in that starting lineup. And we needed to see what Dean Wade and how he could rebound from such a woeful performance. And speaking of Dean, listen, there are so many people who talk shit about Dean Wade, and whenever he does something nice, whether it be a good performance through and through, people refuse to give him credit. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to give him some credit tonight, because Dean Wade, after that just terrible shooting performance against the Boston Celtics, finished 1 rebound shy of a double-double. This motherfucker was aggressive as hell tonight on the glass as he pulled down 4 offensive rebounds, 9 rebounds in total, finished with 15 total points, and was 5 of 10 from the field, including 2 of 5 from three-point range. What have I been saying about Dean Wade all preseason? It is that he just needs to be confident. I don't give a fuck if Dean Wade goes Obviously, if it starts with A, it's going to be a good night, right? But I don't care if he goes 0 of 7. I don't care if he goes 0 of 6. I don't care if he goes 0 of 5. I want you to take the fucking shot. That's what it boils down to. Don't lose confidence in your ability to knock down that triple, because we know historically, you have been able to do that. It's just a lack of consistency and a lack of confidence. And so he got back to doing that tonight and looked much better with some of the connectors around him. And you got a good performance where he shoots 40% from 3-point distance, and you got a performance in which he almost finished with a double-double. Not necessarily things that have been synonymous with the name Dean Wade throughout his Cavaliers tenure. If that's the Dean Wade we're getting on a nightly basis, you better watch out. This dude in a contract season, because he's already got a lot to play for, right? He's in a contract year. We don't know what his future looks like. It's really cloudy. It's really murky, because the Cavaliers could opt to move him at the trade deadline. They could opt to let him walk at the end of the season. But I'm willing to bet you right now, they believe in what this dude can do. They know that he is on one of the best value contracts in basketball if he can knock down the 3-point shot consistently and confidently. If you're getting 4 to 5 3-point attempts from Dean Wade a game, that's right where you want to be. If Dean is knocking down 37, 38, 39, 40% of those, you're in an even better position. And I know the one thing with Dean is it's not just purely the numbers, because I keep talking about consistency and confidence. It's about timing. It's about timing. It's about knowing when you have the opportunity to pull the trigger. If the ball swings your way, and you're going to get a lot of that shit with Strus and Lonzo and Darius and Donovan out there. You're going to get the ball and Larry, right? The ball's going to swing to you on the perimeter and above the break. When that happens, pull the goddamn trigger. And, and if you do, more often than not, you're going to cash. And that's what you're seeing from Dean Wade at points throughout this preseason. It wasn't pretty against Boston, but when you actually give him the opportunities and don't bench him and don't, make sure his minutes aren't fluctuating, I'm willing to bet you that Dean's going to turn in a career year. Partially because it's a contract season, he's motivated, and he knows that he's been involved in a lot of these trade rumors and talks. He even said as much at Cavs Media Day. But I need to see it consistently. He's not going to have a night every night like this. But if he can just have the confidence to do many of these same things that we saw tonight, it's going to be great. And he'll be back. And people will be feeling foolish that they clowned him, right? But it is fair. Listen, those people out there that question whether or not he can do that, I get it. I'm just saying, listen, he has never truly had the ability to just play his natural position. When you got when you got Thomas Bryant on the roster, when you have Larry Nance Jr. on the roster, when you still have Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in your front court as your starting duo, that allows Dean Wade to function much more as a 3-4 than a 4-5, which is what you don't want to see. That is really all you need from Dean. Just play your game. Don't get in your head and move around out there and knock down your shots. Dean Wade is actually an underrated cutter. You've seen that a lot from him. But there's a lot of players on this roster that are very, very capable cutters. And I'm willing to bet that with Lonzo in town, you're going to see much, much more of that. But it wasn't just the reserves. It wasn't just your Lonzos and your Deans of the world, right? The starting lineup was hella fire out there tonight too. Let's talk about DeAndre Hunter. I mean, this dude, DeAndre Hunter, a player that I think many people expect to have a huge season with Darius Garland out initially and Max Strus out initially. This dude was cooking tonight. He had another all-around performance in which he drilled triples. He got to the basket, forced contact, played stellar defense out there, and just genuinely looked like a two-way force out there that we know that he is capable of being. And one of the biggest things out here that sticks out to me in terms of the stat sheet is the free throw attempts. He led the team tonight in that area, 6 of 7 from the charity stripe, forcing his way to the line. The Cavaliers have not had a wing be able to do that in quite some time. If he's able to do that a handful of times a game, let's say 7 to 8 attempts, or rather 5 to 6 or 7 to 8, something in that range, there is no reason why this man can't get close to 20 points per game. And I know that sounds crazy. I know people would say that's a bad thing, but honestly, when you're losing the potential production of a Ty Jerome out there in your second unit, I think that it's not unrealistic to expect a season where he can get close to, I don't know, anywhere from 17 to 21 minutes to 21 points per game. And I think if you put him in lineups that emphasize um, some of those lineups that will surround him with reserves, right, where you're going to need that scoring punch, I think that Hunter will get a lot in terms of point production out there. I don't know what the exact number will be obviously, but I anticipate the Cavaliers playing him a lot of minutes alongside those reserves. I know that he will start. I expect him to start. I want him to start. But I do also expect him, especially in the early going without a Strus, without a DG, to lift up that second unit and give them that scoring punch. And I think Kenny is going to play around with a lot of these lineups early on and move some pieces around and parts around to get guys additional touches. And I think one way that you make use of DeAndre Hunter's pure ability to score the basketball is to feature him alongside some of the second unit players, right? Especially in a season where you're trying to emphasize Evan Mobley's touches. You're not going to get a whole bunch of those if you're Hunter in the starting lineup, like you would in the second unit. Now, here's the thing, right? Since you're starting Sam Merrill is obviously going to be the last option on the floor. I think that distinction would usually go to Jarrett Allen, but Sam most nights is going to be the fifth option until DG gets back, assuming Sam starts. No problem with that at all. Sam, as long as he is knocking down his catch and shoot triples, cutting around, and you saw a lot of that tonight from Sam, all right? Baseline cuts, some 45 actions out there, 45 cuts. You see him moving them back, moving the ball, some extra passes out there, swinging that basketball around. You're going to be in for a treat with him. He may not always wow you from a statistical standpoint, but I'm willing to bet that with him being pushed into that fifth option role, Jarrett Allen being that fourth option out there, DeAndre Hunter will get a good amount of on-ball reps alongside Don and Evan. But they're going to move some pieces around in the early going to really make use of his ability to score. That's what I'm trying to say. And he just showcased throughout this entire preseason, DeAndre Hunter has given you nothing short of a phenomenal performance, right? And I know he left tonight's game early as a precautionary measure per Chris Fedor of Cleveland.com. But having the ability to just give the basketball to a guy, especially in a season where you've lost Ty Jerome's scoring punch, it's going to be big. And that's why I think he'll play a good amount of minutes with the reserves. Somebody else who really, really hooped tonight, and it looks like he's in midseason form already, is Donovan Mitchell. From transition triples to attacking the basket, getting to the line himself, to pull up and catch and shoot triples out there. Donovan is doing it all. He's making plays. You saw that one pass that he had to Lonzo that resulted in Lonzo kicking it back out to the perimeter, I think for a Dean Wade triple. These are the types of things that tend to get overlooked, right, in Donovan's game because he's such a potent scorer out there. But since you're starting him at the point, you're expecting him to bring more of that facilitation and playmaking to the table. And make no mistake, he is not the same type of facilitator as a Darius Garland or a Lonzo Ball out there. But what he does do is he knows how to get his guys to their spots. He is a hell of a drive and kick guy. So he will routinely drive and kick it out to a shooter out on the perimeter, whether that be a Merrill, whether that be a Mobley, whether that be a Hunter, whoever else is out there. That is what Donovan Mitchell will do. And yeah, I know he racked up 5 turnovers tonight, but I'm not truly concerned about that because of everything else that he brings to the table. He's one of the better rebounding twos in the league. We know that what he can do defensively when he is bought in. By the way, Donovan would finish with 3 steals tonight in the Cavaliers win. But man, this was just such a good performance from top to bottom from every single one of these stars out there. Evan Mobley included, despite the lackluster field goal percentage, as Evan would go just 3 of 13 from the field tonight. That's a field goal percentage of 23.1%, in case you guys were wondering. It wasn't always pretty for him out there, but I did like the shot profile. I did like a lot of the attempts that he put on the film. And considering that he went 0 of 5 from deep, I'm not going to read too much into that because he's coming off a season in which he drilled a very good amount of triples last year, and the volume was up tonight. Those 5 triples, it's the same thing that I love to talk about with Dean, or that I used to love to talk about with Isaac. Get the volume up. Everything else will take care of itself, right? That's where I'm at with Jalen Tyson right now too, right? And Jalen had a nice little return to form tonight, and I think people are going to have a little bit of patience with Jalen. Yeah, he can be a little reckless at times. Yeah, he can play a little helter-skelter, or he can be a little bit unorthodox out there. But what I expect from Jalen Tyson is to knock down the open triple, play really, really solid on-ball and off-ball defense, and make the correct read when you get the ball in your hands, right? Even if you're not functioning as a primary or secondary ball handler out there, swing the basketball around, get the ball movement. And that's what we've seen this preseason from him. Yeah, he'll turn the ball over at times. Yeah, he'll have occasional boneheaded plays. He's still a young guard. But Tyson, as long as he can knock down the open triple, whether that be from above the break, the slots, or the corners, I genuinely believe that he can carve out a role in the early going. And even when Darius and Strus get back, if Tyson is playing well enough, there's going to be some tough conversations about minutes. Like, this rotation is already deep enough to where you can play legitimately like 11, 12 deep. Now, obviously, Kenny's not going to do that, but to know that you have that, that's big time, because it's going to keep your main guys healthy when you want to be able to rest some of your regular rotation pieces, when you need Lonzo to sit his ass down so that he's not getting injured, right? When you need Larry to take a night off, when you want to make sure that Donovan is not grinding himself into the ground. Having these young pieces out there, that's critical. And knowing that you can turn to reliable sources of not only offense, but playmaking, rebounding, defense. It is such a major thing that the Cavaliers have not always been able to say. Like, honestly, I know a lot of people might not believe it, but to me, this is the deepest team in Cleveland Cavaliers history. I didn't notice. I'm not saying they're the best, but things in the opinion front, from top to bottom, from first man on the roster to 14th man on the roster, this is the deepest team in basketball, in my opinion. No question. Deepest team in basketball. I cannot wait to see how they function once these guys return to full strength. And I don't know, man. I am over the moon about what they have in their hands right now. And again, this is a night where, like, we didn't really get a whole bunch of Tyrese Proctor or Thomas Bryant minutes. Thomas Bryant played less than 3 minutes. He got 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Tyrese Proctor played a little under 13 minutes, right? And his 13 or so minutes, he went 2 of 5, scored 7 points, and dished out 3 assists. And Tyrese, he will get his opportunities even when this team is at full strength. I don't expect him to play maybe more than 7 to 10 minutes per game, similar to what we have seen from Craig Porter Jr. over these last 2 seasons. But what I do expect is for him, when he does get those opportunities, to take advantage of them. I know that he can shoot the basketball off the catch and shoot. I know that he is a pretty steady defender. I know that he is capable of handling the basketball. But when he gets those opportunities, can he shine? That's what I'm looking for. Can you be that on-ball creator that the Cavaliers lost in Ty Jerome? Can you do that when you get the minutes and the opportunities? Those are the types of things I want to see. But to know that you don't have to rush him into that, that's huge. That is huge. And I think a lot of that has to do with Lonzo staying healthy. A lot of that has to do with Darius Garland staying healthy, Donovan Mitchell staying healthy. But to know that when you want to rest these guys intentionally, to me, I don't know if there's any other luxury that trumps that for a team that is consistently dealt with injuries throughout these last few seasons. And it's a beautiful thing. It truly is. It is a beautiful thing to be able to say that, because that's not something that we have always been able to say. Hell, Larry Nance Jr. wasn't, from a statistical standpoint, like, wasn't the He's not blowing you out of the water. 5 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Now, honestly, you can make a case that it does, right? That's sheer versatility out there. And one of the big highlights that we got from Larry tonight was a beautiful, absolutely beautiful big-to-big passing sequence between him and Jarrett Allen, where he found Jarrett right around the rim. That's the type of shit that really just excites me, right? Having these connective pieces out there. There are so many great connective passers on this roster, whether you're talking about Sam, whether you're talking about Max or Lonzo or Larry. I mean, you can keep going, right? It's just so many guys that when you get them in specific lineups with one another, they should be able to get guys clean looks. And it's just going to be, it's going to be phenomenal. I could really go on and on. I could gush about it all night, but I'll wrap it up and just get into the chat section here. LeBron says hi. Neverbloom says Lonzo was so fun to watch tonight. I'm so hyped. He also says hoping Dre's knee contusion isn't serious. Looked like a hard hit. I think it was mostly a precautionary thing for them to pull him. Dominic Fortea says, hey, I didn't watch this one because it's preseason, but I heard great things. Dog, when you get the chance, watch the replay. This was a phenomenal showcase. I know it's preseason. I know you can make exceptions generally for preseason games, but tonight was the quintessential Lonzo Ball performance. He showed you everything that he is capable of bringing to the table, whether that be playmaking, rebounding, on and off ball scoring, or defense. He showed you everything that he is fully capable of doing. And as long as the Cavaliers, don't force too much on him, it's going to be fun, man. Tom K says, Hunter, prayers up. JDS says, liked what I saw. I agree. I do too. Ian says, still very early, but I think Proctor is coming for CPJ's minutes. That's an interesting one because I do believe that from a standpoint of what they need from that off-ball scoring, from that on-ball scoring standpoint, I think that I think that what you're going to want to get out of that second unit is going to be heavily dependent upon game flow, right? Lonzo is not necessarily the guy that's going to take a bunch of those shots. He didn't do it tonight. He is a pass first guard out there. He can get to his spots, whether that be above the break or and function as an off-ball shot maker for another ball handler out there. But you're going to need somebody to take on some of that scoring load when you're not, mixing and matching with some of the starters. Like, as already mentioned, DeAndre will play a fair share of his minutes with the reserves. I do fully expect Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley to have some of their turns with the reserve lineups too. But you're going to need somebody off of that bench to step up. And I think Proctor, he's going to get chances. I don't think he'll be the first person up. I think the Cavaliers will try and see what CPJ does to begin the season, but I think that Tyrese Proctor will certainly get his opportunity. So I'll be tracking that one. D Jackson says that block by Jarrett Allen on Thompson was amazing. It absolutely was. Like, Jarrett Allen is so underappreciated still. I know that he had a woeful showing in those final 2 games against Indiana, but people forget about the 82-game regular season that he had. People forget about these 7 games outside of those final 2 in the postseason. And I'm expecting a huge season from Jarrett Allen. He just has to be consistent all the way through, however it ends in the playoffs. Hopefully it ends in a finals berth and championship and whatnot. But however it ends in the playoffs, I just hope he gives them a consistently good showing throughout the playoffs. And I expect nothing less in this, in what is probably going to be deemed a final chance for a number of Cavaliers, including Jarrett. Darwin Morgan says Lonzo gave us the first preseason win since 2023. Yeah, like, again, I really don't give a damn about wins and losses in the preseason, but it is nice to close it out on one. I wanted them to. That prior to tonight's game, they were 2-13 in the preseason. In their last 15. So good to be able to get a W finally put up for Kenny Atkinson. Jackson Carter says Zoe motherfucking 2. Yes, I agree. Ian says if Lonzo has the 3 ball going, it's over for the rest of the league. I agree, man. You need him to get back to that efficient 3-point shooting. I think that he will. And again, I've said this on basically every stream this postseason or this preseason. Lonzo was on an upward trajectory on a 3-year curve, right? those 2 seasons in New Orleans, and then the season that he gets to Chicago, he was elevating his 3-point percentage every single year on high volume. And I expect him, because he did not shoot well last season on limited time, right? You got a limited sample size from Lonzo just last season. He played 35 games and he shot 34.4% from 3-point distance, and he shot like 29%, I think, or 31%. I can't remember what the exact percentage was on wide open triples, but it was not good for him last year. But I'm gonna wipe the slate clean. I'm not gonna hold that against him because it was his first basketball in 2 years, and even then he wasn't able to stay healthy enough throughout the duration of the season because of the wrist injury. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt. I'm not going to believe that is the version of Lonzo the Cavs are getting. I fully believe that Lonzo, as long as he can get to like 37, 38% on 4 or 5, maybe 5 to 6 attempts from range a night, he's going to be gravy, especially if he's hitting his wide open ones and providing everything else that he does to the table, whether that be the facilitation, whether that be the on ball and team defense, whether that be the rebounding. You're getting so much for a pretty cheap contract, right? They actually saved, get this, these motherfuckers actually saved $1 million in that trade. They saved $1 million and they picked up flexibility, because what does that mean? Lonzo is actually he has a team option for the 2026-27 season. If the Cavaliers don't like what they see out of Lonzo this year, or if he fails to remain healthy, they can easily cut bait. They can move on. They can pivot. And you want to have that type of flexibility, especially in this CBA. So, man, this trade is going to be the one that I honestly believe pushes them to that next step out there. Ian says Dean Wade will be back on a 2-year deal. I agree. Crofty says Dean looked really aggressive going after rebounds tonight. Looked awesome. I hope this is the version of Dean Wade that we get consistently. I truly do. Sultan Muhammad says Lonzo makes everyone better. The Bulls team wasn't the same once he got hurt. Listen, at one point, that Chicago Bulls team was top 3 in the Eastern Conference, right? In his first season there, they had a lot of pieces that really meshed well, whether that be Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, you had Alex Caruso, right? Nikola Vucevic, who, very, very good in that season and the seasons that followed. He legitimately looked like he was going to be a big time threat for them come the playoffs had he been able to stay healthy. And at one point, they had a top 3 record in the East. I'm glad it didn't work out, but it also sucks that he missed out on 2.5 years of basketball because of his body betraying him, essentially. Dennis Dokes says Dean Wade actually has an inside-out game. I hate we force him to stand on 3-point arc. Yeah, he's a good cutter out there too, right? I know that he can play inside out, but I think a lot of that is schematics. And also it's a confidence thing with Dean. Like, Dean could do more, but I just don't think Dean over the years has allowed himself to be able to do that. And frankly, they haven't asked him to, because they have Evan Mobley, because they have Jarrett Allen, because they have such good ball handlers and drivers of the basketball in Donovan and Darius, and with Hunter in town. They're not going to ask Dean to do much offensively outside of cut to the basket and shoot the open triple, which is 9 times out of 10 going to be from the corners. If, like Spoke says, plus Lonzo is a more making the right play / read first before anything type of player, while not being a liability on either end. That is also, he also says, hate to compare, but I'll miss Ty, but Ty gives us what you already got in Darius and Dom, as I saw him more like a luxury, but Lonzo brings more pace in all situations and just more overall needs, in my opinion. So the beautiful thing about Lonzo is that he doesn't necessarily overlap with Don and Darius. He brings something completely different to the table in many regards. He fills gaps. Like, he makes this team better by filling some of those holes, or patching some of those holes that the Cavaliers were deficient in, whether that be on-ball defense or size at the guard or rebounding at that position, right? There's a lot of different things out there that Lonzo does that does not overlap with Darius or Donovan. Ty Jerome, on the other hand, right? You had a lot of redundancy there. And sometimes that's a good thing, mind you, right? I'm not going to shit on Ty Jerome at all, because he had a phenomenal season last year, 6th man of the year level season. I would have loved to have retained Ty Jerome. But what you can say is that, yeah, there were some redundancies there, the same type of redundancies that people love to call out for Evan and Jarrett, right? There's some overlap there. But what separates Ty from Jerome is that not only is Ty Jerome a lesser of a playmaker than Lonzo Ball, Lonzo's a much, 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 much better defender, right? When Ty's shot is not falling, yeah, the threat of the on ball creation is there, but he can be taken out a little more easily than Alonzo, who can impact the game in many facets, in many regards. And so that's kind of like the comparison between the two, the Venn diagram between the two. Crofty says Lonzo to Don, back to Lonzo inside, then beautiful out to Dean for a three. Woo, it was a beautiful work. It truly was. That to me was cinema, right? That was beautiful basketball, the way that it was meant to be played. Cito Guzman Jr. says Lance Jr. is such a good fit. I agree with you, my friend. I think that by the end of the season, some of the people out there a little bit skeptical on Larry playing the center are going to be like shaking their heads about why they ever begin to question that in the first place. Zell says Lonzo trade was something similar to our version of OKC trading for Caruso in my eyes. Yeah, I think that, listen, I've made this comparison before. I had I have a breakdown of Lonzo and my predictions for him on the season. If you guys have not seen that, I'll link it in the comments, but it talks about that, right? I don't think that Lonzo and Caruso are the same type of player, obviously, but I think from an impactfulness standpoint, a pure impact standpoint, I think Lonzo can have the same type of impact off that Cavalier bench that Alex Caruso has so often for whatever team that he is on, whether that be the Lakers and winning a title with them, or the Chicago Bulls, where he was actually pretty solid, right? One of the bright spots on a team that was trending downward after Lonzo's injury. And I also think that he has been that way with OKC, obviously becoming a now two-time champion. That is the type of impact that I see Lonzo having for this Cavaliers team. And I know it's a big if he can stay healthy. That to me is like the biggest thing. Health is going to be the biggest theme overall for this team. I'm praying to the gods, right? The basketball gods, hell, just God in general. Stay healthy. Keep these dudes healthy. Double J says the ball is sticking so much less, having great passers, connectors, and Zoe and Nance Jr. Yeah, like I mentioned, the biggest one to me with Larry tonight was the pass to Jarrett Allen in the low post area. And we've seen Larry do that a few times. He had a beautiful pass back in bounds to Naquan Tomlin. I think it was against Chicago in that second or first game against Chicago. You've seen him do it, whether he's swinging the basketball right back around to Dean out there on the perimeter. We've seen him clear space for other guys, whether it be he cleared a good amount of space for DeAndre Hunter to get his shot off tonight for kind of like a dribble handoff. And this is the type of shit that really the Cavaliers have not often gotten from the reserves. You can expect that from Jarrett Allen, who's a phenomenal DHO guy out there. Evan Mobley's gotten pretty good at that over the years. But what you really didn't expect much out of was from the Cavs reserve bigs to provide you that level of redundancy that you like to see out there. Crofty says Ty intended to get tunnel vision. Well, Ty tended to get tunnel vision, and when his shot wasn't falling, the offense ground to a halt. Lonzo keeps the wheels turning without necessarily having to hit shots. That is exactly what you saw in Indiana, right? Ty was essentially taken out of the offense, not only because of the pressure, the on-ball full court pressure that Indiana was applying, but I think that if you're able to get in Ty's way, if you're able to prevent him from getting to his spots, if you're able to get him in his head, his impactfulness goes way down because he doesn't bring all of these other things to the table that Lonzo is able to do. Jeremy Johnson says, if we stay healthy, no one can beat us 4 times in a 7-game series. Listen, all I know is that I believe this is the best team in the Eastern Conference. The champions are still the champions. I got to put respect on the OKC Thunder. I don't think that they're not going to get out of the West this year. Maybe let me rephrase that. I think that OKC is going to represent the Western Conference in the finals again. That, to me, is the team to beat in the NBA. The team to beat in the East, however, is Cleveland, and they have to stay healthy. They have to stay healthy. That's the biggest thing, and I hope that for all of our sakes, we don't have to watch another season of of players being hurt at the wrong possible time. Because for what it's worth, the Cavaliers managed their players very good last year for most of the season. I know that Max didn't get back in until mid-December last year, but you had multiple players playing career lows in minutes. You have multiple players playing career highs in games, like a Darius Garland, right? Like a Jarrett Allen. You had multiple players hitting these benchmarks that are good things, and they weren't burnt into the ground. But when the time came for the postseason, bad injury luck occurred, right? Darius Garland re-aggravates the toe injury that he suffered towards the end of the season. Evan Mobley suffers the ankle issue. You have DeAndre Hunter with the dislocated thumb. Just so many of these, and then Sam Merrill too. You can lump him in there too. Didn't play the last game. So many of these untimely injuries, bad injury luck after a season full of managing your players and winning 64 fucking games in the process. Just tough, man. And so if that does not happen, if they're able to get a full slate, a clean bill of health, or mostly healthy, because nobody's totally healthy entering the playoffs, but as long as people are out there playing, able to get up and suit up on the court, this should be a phenomenal year. And I'm not ruling out anything. Title, I'm truly not, but I do definitely believe that the Western Conference is OKC's. So we'll have to see. Jeremy Johnson says you can't press so full court. He pushes the ball every time he touches it, and we're in every game still. Crofty says OKC versus Cavs finals like it should have been last year. That's where I was at, man. That's what it should have been last year, but it unfortunately didn't. Credit to the Indiana Pacers for taking advantage and getting all the way there, because it wasn't just the Cavaliers they beat. You got to give them credit for dispatching the other teams they beat as well. And listen, that team came a game away from winning a championship. We could have very well been talking about Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam and fucking TJ McConnell may have won a title last year had Tyrese not gone down, which that sucks for them, but they're now not going to be a team that should be a proverbial thorn in the Cavaliers' side. The Cavaliers won't necessarily have to contend with the Boston Celtics being nearly as potent as they were offensively, because they lost Jason Tatum for the season, because they traded Drew Holiday, because they traded away KP, because some of these pieces are gone that have been big pieces for them over the years. Do they have everything it takes to be a top 6, top 4 team in the Eastern Conference? Hell yeah. But I'm not worried about the Boston Celtics in ways that I was prior to the injuries. And then obviously the New York Knicks, right? New York is one of those teams that the Cavaliers, honestly, they're going to be a tough challenge. They're a deep team, and they're not coached by a Tom Thibodeau who will routinely grind his players into the ground. They are a deep team, and they have some very talented players. They have size that they can throw at you. They have scorers. They got guys that can defend out there. They can space the floor. They have heart and hustle out there. No pun intended. They're going to be a tough challenge. And I think they will be the number 2 seeded team in the Eastern Conference. The Orlando Magic, a team that has a lot of size and defense out there, that just acquired Desmond Bane and shored up a lot of their deficiencies out there. I honestly believe that those teams are going to be a real threat to Cleveland. But as long as Cleveland can stay healthy, I'm not worried about their chances of getting past him. And let me not forget about teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, who have the perennial MVP caliber talent in Giannis, who acquired Miles Turner, who should be able to field a really, really playoff competent or competitive team out there. And then, you look at the likes of some of these sleeper teams in the Eastern Conference, whether that be the Atlanta Hawks, who have so much size, right? Don't forget, they got Jalen Johnson coming back, who was well on his way to earning all-star honors. You got Trae Young still, obviously. They traded for KP. They got Emeka Okongwu. They have so many pieces out there that should be really Ricochet, right? I could go on and on. All I'm saying is that the Eastern Conference does present its own unique challenges, but this Cleveland Cavaliers team should be able to overcome them all, assuming they're able to stay healthy. Nobody is crowned in the preseason. I know we all expect Cleveland to be a very, very good team in the Eastern Conference. And oh yeah, the Detroit Pistons, right? I don't know what they're going to be this year. I expect them to be better. I expect them to have a competitive defensive mindset out there. That's what JB Bickerstaff does best. But I do believe that they got some challenges of their own to work out. They had the NBA's second leading three-point shooter in Malik Beasley last year to only Anthony Edwards, and by a hair at that, and very efficiently at that. There's no real definitive answer yet on Malik Beasley as these investigations continue, and who knows where he'll actually be. Cade Cunningham, he took a phenomenal leap last season, and I expect him to only get better, but they got some issues of their own to work out, and they got some chemistry things to work out on their own, right? But I'm not afraid of them in ways that other people are, but I do think they're a challenge out there. I do think they will be a playoff team. I do think they have what it takes to get out of the first round, but we'll have to see, man. The East, really the NBA in general has a lot of parity right now. I know OKC is probably the top of the class, but I do believe that there's a lot of parity and there's a lot of competitive battles that will be going on this year to secure some of the seeding. And the West is a little different than the East, but man, this Cavaliers team, they have pivots and counters for almost everything that you can throw at them. If you need to get a stop, you have that versatility. You got that size out there that you can now throw out there. If you need to get a bucket, you have guys that can do that for you. If you need to get some rebounds, guess what? You got some of the best in your front court at being able to do that. You need to do all of these different things out there, right? You need to make an adjustment in game to decide a game, right? Kenny Atkinson has proven that he can do that. Hell, we saw him almost get away with doing that this preseason with the beautiful play that he drew up. That was I believe it was a Luke Travers pass to Thomas Bryant, where Thomas doesn't complete it, but that essentially could have been a game-winning call up right there, right? So all of these different faucets that many other teams don't have, Cleveland has that ability to try it out there. They have counters for almost everything that teams can throw at them, and that is not something they could have said even last year. So I cannot wait. We got about 8 days, right? The season starts against the New York Knicks on October 22nd. That is a big-time game. I cannot wait, man. You know what else I can't wait for? These classic jerseys. When are they dropping them? Let me know, man. I cannot wait to spend all of my money on them. But man, I'm so hyped right now. This was such a phenomenal performance, and I can't wait to see this team continue to go out there and gel like they've been doing this entire preseason, and just stay healthy. That's all this really boils down to. Stay healthy, and the Cavaliers should be the number one seeded team in the East, and even that, right? If the Cavaliers don't get the number one seed, it's not a big deal. As long as you get a top 4 seed and you stay healthy, that's really all I care about. That in the regular season, I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it. But at the end of the day, I just want health and a top 4 seed. Just give me that, and we're good. We're gravy. I can live with everything else, and we'll see where the chips fall. As I always tell you guys, if you like to reach out, you know how you can. It's Cavalier_pod on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and more. If you would like to be added to the It's Cavalier Discord chat, you know what to do. Leave a rating, leave a review, send a screenshot of said review to itscavalier53@gmail.com, and I will send you said invite. If you want to support the pod in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon. You can also do so on YouTube for as little as $1 a month, guys. Really, really cheap to be able to do that. But even if you don't, I will still be here making the content because I love this team, and I know you guys do too. Go Cavs.